Hi, I'm Hummy from Hummy's World, and in this lesson we're going to talk about fixing exposure in Photoshop and in Photoshop Elements. The camera errors. The camera has to determine settings based on math. It does not have a human eye. They have to come up with some mathematical way in order to get the camera to work automatically for you, and it is based on math, and sometimes you cannot cover all things with math, and so they just have to do their best. One math that it does, and understanding how this works, will help you in fixing your photos. One thing that it does is that the camera bases its calculations assuming that all tones within a frame average out to mid-gray, or 18%. You may have heard before to go out and buy yourself an 18% mid-gray card and take a photo of it at location. This is the reason for that card. The camera bases its calculations assuming that all tones in the photo itself, in the frame, average out to mid-gray, and I'm going to show you an example of that in this comparison. I took a photo of a black object. It was actually a binder because I couldn't find a black piece of paper, a gray piece of paper, and a white piece of paper. I just set them up in my chair. You can lean them up against a wall wherever you want, and I encourage you to get out there and just do this. It's a really quick test, and it's a big eye-opener. So I took a photo of all three of them together, and you can see the differences in all three of the colors when the camera takes a picture of all three of them. Then I moved it around and I put up only the black, and I zoomed in so that my camera was only taking a photo of that black folder, and this is the color I got. And you can see it is not black. It's a 18% gray with some white balance problems. It kind of looks a little bit brown. In my house I have a lot of wood flooring, and because of my light I did not fix the white balance in my camera, so mine actually looks a little bit on the brown side. But this is what my camera adjusted to when it only had one color, black, so it adjusts everything to an average of 18% gray. And so because it only had this one color to look at, it adjusted it to this color. Then I took a photo of only the gray paper, and I zoomed in so I just had the gray paper, and this is what I got. You can see it also adjusted it down to what it thought was 18% gray, and it looks very similar to the black photo. And then lastly I took a photo of the white paper, and this is what it looked like. And so you can see all three of them are the same color, even though in real life there are three different colors, and that is because the camera is doing its math and changing everything to 18% gray. This is what happens when you're out there taking photos of the snow. It averages out all the pixels within the frame that you have composed in your camera viewer, and it adjusts it to an average of 18% gray. So we're going to talk about fixing exposure. We'll come back to that 18% gray from time to time, but I just wanted to get that out there as a beginner, as a starter. But we're going to be working in Photoshop Elements, and we're going to be fixing these photos that I took outside the other day, and we're going to be first fixing the underexposed photos. Now you'll remember that the underexposed photos are not exposed enough to light, so the photo is going to be dark. The majority of the photos are underexposed. That's just what the camera does in its math. The histogram, the graph is to the left, and we're going to be looking at that. And you're going to move the white marker to the left edge of the mountain to fix it. So let's look at how we do that. I've got Photoshop Elements here, and I have here the photos that we took outside. And the first set right here are 5 photos that were taken in my Olympus camera, and the last 5 were the 5 photos that were taken in my Canon, in my DSLR. And so if I go here to details, just as we learned in a previous lesson, and I have, and it even automatically put Olympus in there in the title when I imported it from that camera. I thought that was pretty interesting. In these first 5, I went ahead and retitled them -1, -2, -1, 0, +1, and +2. But if you'll recall, if you're in your details view, as you learned in the last lesson, and if you have these in your detail view, you can see over here that it was taken in an f-stop 4.9, and the seconds that it were adjusted, and the steps that were in the exposure compensation setting. And so when I renamed these, I actually came in here and did a quick cheat and then went over here and renamed them. And so you can see here the steps, and the adjustment that was made in the camera for the steps was the exposure time. It left the f-stop. Depending on what the camera is doing and what setting it is in will depend on what it changes. You can see here it changed the ISO on this one in order to get that +2. And down here in this step with in this set of photos, the ones with my Canon, you can see here the steps also and what it did. And here in this camera it actually changed the f-stop as well as the exposure time, and down here at the bottom it also changed the ISO. So it's doing that calculation for you in order to determine what is best to get those exposure compensations. But as I said, I went ahead and named them for our convenience when we're looking at it in this view. And so I'm going to move this so we can see once again part of our Photoshop Elements, and part of our folder. I'm going to use this set down here. So you see the one that is most underexposed, that is the darkest, is this -2, and the brightest is the +2. So these are the ones that are underexposed. The 0 should be a perfect compensation because that's what the camera calculated it as accurate. But if you remember, when we were looking in the viewfinder, we actually thought that the +1 was the most perfect one. But these two are overexposed then. So let's pull this underexposed into the camera and we're going to look at it. And to see the histogram in Photoshop Elements, the easiest way is just to hit Control L. Oh, it came up over here. Let me bring it over. And this is called the levels. And here is the histogram, and you can easily see that this is way underexposed. There are no light pixels over here. They are all these darker pixels. And if we're going to open up the next one and compare it, Control L to open up the levels, you're going to see that we have a little bit more brightness to it. It's still underexposed because it's all to the left, but the pixels come to the right a little bit more than in the last photo. And so what we're going to do is click on this white slider and just move it to the edge of the mountain. Now that's a little too far. This mountain's not great for determining fixing. Some of them are a little bit easier. And then you're going to see that the photo is lightened, and you click OK, and this photo is now fixed. It's that easy to fix the photo. If you'll recall, we thought this one was a little bit not perfect. Control L, and if you wanted to move that slider over a little bit, actually in this case the black slider needs to be moved over just a little bit too, and then you would say OK. That exposure wasn't too bad. But that is the basic idea of fixing the exposure. We'll get this one that's -2, and we can do that again too. And this one, you'd have to move this slider way over to fix the exposure compensation. Sometimes you don't want to go too far because you lose some coloring. Just sometimes you have to eye it. And then you could click OK and then open up the levels box again, and you're going to see that now it averages out from left to right. It's not a solid line anymore, but it is fixed. If I hit Control Z and take it back, hit Control L to open up the levels, you can also do auto levels and let it fix it. But I personally don't like using it. I don't think it does as good of a job. But you can click auto levels, and here it doesn't seem to be doing too much, does it? Not anything at all, actually. Reset auto levels. It is not even changing it here. It must be too drastically underexposed for them. I want to point out the numbers that you're seeing in here, and you're going to remember that we've reviewed these before. Here is the 0, which is all black, and over here is the 255, which is all white. And down here you're going to see it is similar. So in this, and you're going to see the gradient from white to black, and that's kind of helps you visualize, so you can see that a gray that is this color is going to fall about right here on here. Of course, as you move these, you're going to see that the numbers also move. Well, that's just moving. I've never paid attention to the middle grade number. That's it looks like it's moving like compensation. I'm gonna have to figure out what that is, because see, I use all of my efforts in this, and you can see if I've moved this over here, that's now pointing at the 151 on the bar. So we're going to hit no for those adjustments. And we have a note here that snow photos are always underexposed. Camera detects the sun on the snow and adjusts the exposure down. And so if you want to take good snow photos and not have to fix the levels drastically in every one of them, you're going to want to use the exposure compensation and bump it up to, most of the time it's 2. So now we're going to look at the overexposed photos that we took. And overexposed photos are exposed too much to the light. Photos will be very light. The histogram, the graph, is to the right. You move the black marker to the right edge of the mountain to fix it. Oh, that will be the next one. I went too far. So let's go in here and get this overexposed photo and we'll take a look at it. Hit Control L, and now you're going to see that the histogram is to the right. And to fix it, you're going to grab this black marker and slide it to the edge of the mountain. Now this mountain isn't, I mean, this would be the edge where it starts, but I would probably go just a little bit darker on this one. You have to look out here and you have to eye it. Let's see what auto does here. Oh, okay, so auto fixed it here. You can reset it and do this and click OK and Control L to bring that up again, and you're going to see now it reaches from the left to the right. So that's how you fix the overexposed images. So some other tricks for fixing under and overexposed photos. You can fix an underexposed photo by duplicating it and using the screen blending mode. So let's go in here and get an underexposed image. And sometimes it's worthy to try to fix it through levels and try to fix it through this method, because you're going to get different results each time. So I'm going to hit Control J to duplicate my background layer, and then change the blending mode to screen. And you're going to see, I think this fixed it much better than the other way almost. So that is a trick. Now if you need to, if it didn't fix it enough, Control J and duplicate it again. Now when I duplicated this layer, it was already on the screen blending mode, and so I didn't have to fix that again. So I think hit the eye before and after. It's preference which one you like. I'm not sure which one I like better, but it's kind of difficult to use the Control L levels this way when you have multiple layers, and this is when the instance begins that you need to look at the histogram window, and so we're going to be opening that up now. If you go to the window drop down menu and click on histogram, it's going to bring up this window. Now you can float it around and close it out, and then and then go up here and open it up every time if you want to do that. But you can also hover it right up here and dock it. So now I have my effects, which is going to be my styles in here. It should be on drop shadows or content, which I never use. adjustments I have in here. So if I'm doing a layer adjustment, which we're going to be working with later, or the histogram. And so I can see the histogram and my layers at the same time. Because I have now I could have docked it down here, but that wouldn't have done much good to go back and forth between layers and histogram. So having it up here is convenient. Now this histogram it may come up in the RGB, or it may come up in the colors, but as I told you, we're only working with the luminosity right now, so make sure that shows in the I have no idea why this error thing is always there. I click on it and it goes away. But we're going to be working in the luminosity right now. And if you have this drop down menu here, you can set this so it works for the entire image, which would be all layers, or just the layer that you're on. And so you can see this is what just the layer I'm working on looks like, but we want to do the entire image. And so if I turn this off, you can see it moved it more to the left. If I turn this off, you can see it moved it more to the left. And so we keep going. Now if let's say I Control J to duplicate that layer again, you're going to see it begins to become overexposed. It goes too far to the right, and so now I've done this too many times, and so I'm going to delete that layer. And if you need to use the opacity there, and it's bringing that down a little bit more. Now there's some of these blacks are missing over here, but for the most part this is now in the center. And so the levels have been fixed in that manner. In this histogram, and I told you in one of the previous videos that I would show you this, over here, if you hover over the corner, you're going to see where it says level 0, and there are 0 pixels that are, the count says 0. So there are 0 pixels on the color 0. If you move it over to this side, you're going to get it right in the corner. You're going to see the level this is why it's called levels. The level is 255, which is pure white, and you're going to see there are 500 pixels in my image that are 255 pure white. If we go out here, the level 174 has 763 pixels out there in my photo. And so that can be kind of, I don't know what you would really do with that knowledge, but that's where you can find out exactly what that number is on the graph, the exact number and count in the photo. That's kind of cool, huh? So let's close this out without making any changes. Of course, I always recommend actually bringing these into another document and working on them from there, so that you don't in fact, let's do that right now. I'm going to make a new blank document, and a paper size is just fine. This is a better practice so that you don't accidentally mess up your original photos. You always want to keep your original photos. Let's go back here. So another trick for fixing overexposed photos is to duplicate the photo and then use the multiply blending mode. So we're going to go back into Photoshop, and we're going to get that overexposed photo, and I'm actually going to do it the safe way this time and bring it into my document. It looks like my photo is way bigger than my document size. I'm just going to make it smaller for these purposes. You can see this Canon takes really large photos. Now when we brought it in, this is on colors, so I need to change it to luminosity. And to fix it, we're going to hit Control J, and we are going to change it to multiply. And you're going to see how that did for the histogram. If I use the eye, there's the before and there's the after. So it did make it spread out more from right to left, just one of them. If I do it again, Control J, it actually fixed it a little bit more. Now here's the trick, and it may be my next thing. Combine, if needed, use the opacity slider. So we did do that a minute ago. We use the opacity slider, but you can combine them by also going to the screen mode. So I might go to the screen mode for this one and then lower the opacity down and see what I get. And then I might do it again, and this time go back to the multiply mode and lower the opacity. The opacity is already down. Up the opacity, and that actually looks pretty good. So you can combine the screen and the multiply modes, going back and forth with them until you get your image to its best setting. And this image did not take very well at all. I think it was at dark. Look at the flowers. I think it's because I was either focused more, I had the focus on these flowers, or because it was so dark outside when I actually took that photo. It's amazing if you really knew how dark it was outside that I even got anything on this photo. But that's how you would combine them. The next thing I'm going to show you is to use the new adjustment layer. So there are no permanent changes, and you can readjust over and over. So let's just get rid of these layers, and we're back to our original, which is an overexposed photo. So rather than hitting Control L to bring up the levels to fix this, I'm going to bring up the levels in the new adjustment layer. And so that is down here, and choose levels, and now I have this adjustment tab that opens up, and this is in different places. I'm in Photoshop Elements 9. It's in different places for different versions of Photoshop, but it is always there. You'll be able to find it in your program. And I can then take this black one and move it over like this, and go ahead and double click up here to close that out. Now I have this levels, and I can use my eye before and after to see the fix. And if I don't like the fix, if I've done maybe something else to the photo and I want to do this again and reopen it again, I just double click here and I'm able to go and make some other changes to it. So it's not permanent. When you do the Control L, it's permanent in that photo. Makes a change, you can't go back and change it again. And so I recommend using the new adjustment layer to fix your levels instead, because you can always go back and tweak it. Because like, let's say I did Control J and duplicated this and put it on multiply. Oh, now my levels needs to be fixed, maybe going back this way. So I can apply both techniques in this one photo to get the best exposure. And speaking about the best fix. If you fix one thing in your photo, this is the best and quickest fix. I always look for the levels fix in my photos first. I do this for every photo that I bring into my layouts. I look at the levels. It's just habit now. And I generally don't fix them in any other way. So if you're going to do one fix and make it a quick fix, check at those levels and fix those. So I'll see you around at the next lesson.